So yeah, it's been a couple of years since your old job. I know you were doing a couple of things during COVID. So what led to you setting up this new business venture that's been going on for a while, and what's the reason for your success there, do you think?
It's a good question. As the years go by, I progressively have this timer in my head, and I feel like if I don't achieve a certain goal by a certain time frame, I feel this anxiety and it just keeps driving me to want to achieve something. And so there came a time during COVID when I was left without my previous business, which was affected by COVID, where I had to come to a decision about what do I want to do with my life. And as somebody who's always been very ambitious and progressive and hardworking, it didn't occur to me that such an incident would occur where I would literally have no idea what I'm doing next. And the reason why I mention that is because when you talk to a lot of people now, especially in my experience, when I talk to younger people now going through uni and they've just left school, they don't really have, a lot of them just don't really know what they're doing after uni. It's more just they're going with the flow, you know? It's just like, I don't know. And that's so interesting because 10 years ago, I don't know about you, but a lot of the people back in my school, we knew that this is what we want to do. We want to be a lawyer. We want to be a doctor. We want to be a whatever. And so
Yeah.
I understand now why a lot of people now in this younger generation, the people who are turning 19, 20, 21, 22, I understand why they don't know. And it's because there's so many opportunities and you don't even need school or university to get anywhere. But I was that year where you just missed the cusp, you know? It's like no one was really like, it was like MSN Messenger and BlackBerry. Like no one really used all of this other social media stuff. So they didn't really have these opportunities that you guys, I say you,
Information wasn't as readily
exactly.
available.
You couldn't
Yeah.
just start your own business like that. And so
Okay.
with this, I I was I was in a med school. So like my path was to be a doctor. I went to a good school, got the best grades, all of that, very studious, academic. And so that was my path for many years, you know, from the age of whatever, 9, 10, whatever. It's like I knew that this was the path. Okay. So imagine you get to uni, you finish a degree, it's like 5 years long, and then you're just like, what the hell is going on? I don't want to do this anymore. And so this is before COVID. After uni, I was like, I'm overworking just to earn 30, 35, whatever. So in the first month after, I was like, I'm done with this. I'm not going to do it. And everybody thought I was crazy. They were like, what are you doing? You're throwing away this degree people would kill for. Like it even brought animosity. Like people they were being mildly jealous over this really irrelevant thing that doesn't affect their life. But it's because they see, I guess now when I deep it, it's like they see what I what they could have been in front of them that they worked so hard for that they didn't manage to achieve for whatever reason. And then they're being super harsh on themselves by reflecting off of me, watching how I'm just throwing it away as if like it's a secondary opportunity for me. And at the time, back then, I didn't understand that. I didn't see that. But now I think about it, I'm like, you know, I get it. I totally get it. But I think what I'm trying to get to is this wasn't my path. It's just if you're capable and you're driven enough and you have the necessary resources, whether that be the books, internet, food on the table, shelter, somewhere to sleep, and you have the drive, you will achieve pretty much whatever you want to achieve. At least for me, if something didn't occur the way that I wanted it to, I would just find a way to make it work. It wasn't even an option that, oh, you know, this is not for me. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even know that was a thing where like, if you failed, you don't do it. It didn't occur to me. And I don't know where that came from because I went through so many schools. We moved around a lot of rough schools. And so I guess watching and observing from a young age, you have to keep adapting to every new environment, especially when I was younger. And I didn't have that much time to make friends in each new school that I went to. And because a lot of the schools were quite rough, it's like you have to learn to be able to self-defend. You have to be quite street smart. And so you have to be quite independent. You know, I couldn't like rely on all these people, whatever. I had to do a lot of things by myself. And so I guess that gave me a confidence from a younger age, both in terms of street smart, but physically as well, because, you know, I was like training at the same time to make sure that, you know, I could self-defend and da-da-da. And so this was just a baseline for me to achieve these things. But at the same time, I looked around me and I was like, all of these people are like leading to the wrong things in life. They're going into crime, this, that, whatever. That's not, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be, like on the right side of the law. I want to make sure I'm getting a good job, blah, blah, blah. So I was thinking, okay, I want to be a doctor. And I don't know why I said doctor. It wasn't like being a lawyer or a banker just didn't occur to me. And I think the reason why is because I knew doctors back then. And so for me back then, that was the epitome of success. You achieve this.
Why would why would you want to be a doctor?
We didn't really have any like lawyers or bankers in my circles back then. There was just like none around. And
There were doctors in their circle?
there were doctors in the circles that I could see. And, like, I don't know if you know, but like with a lot of Middle Eastern, Asian, Indian backgrounds, all of these kind of backgrounds, like being a doctor is the thing.
Isn't
you know what I mean?
elite status?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so back then I worked up to this goal, knowing that that's what I want to do from the age of 10. And so I tailored my way of learning and the subjects that I was taking at school and whatever from back then. And so there was a strategy, and there was an 8-9 year plan as a kid to see that far ahead. And that was the norm, to have a plan that far ahead. Okay. So especially now, if you ask a kid, like I guarantee you, even by the age of 21, half the people won't even know what they want to do. And I think for me, that's the scariest thing, is not knowing where I want to go. And I don't know why, but it genuinely frightens the pants off me. So after uni, I decided, you know what, I want to take a break. I want to do something more fun, something for myself. And like, I didn't take a gap year. And so many of the students in my uni took a gap year. So they were like exploring the world and whatever. I didn't do that. It was just constant exams, education, da 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 da. So I also built up this tolerance for work, just constant work.
Sounds good.
From school, doing all these A levels. And then I don't know if you know, but like medicine and dentistry, you have to do these external exams like that you also have to revise for, because they're not difficult. It's like IQ tests, but they're like verbal, non-verbal stuff.
Yeah.
And you have like 10 seconds to answer each question.
Sure.
And it's like testing all these different anyway, so after uni, I decided, let me take a break.
Yeah.
And so I did a month of exploration, looking at things that I could do. And I bumped into somebody on the street. No, sorry. I was just walking and I see this long line outside of a club. And I was like, everybody here is like super dressed up, all glitz and glam. And, I went to the front of the queue and asked the guy what's going on. And he told me there's this event, this big rapper is here and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, sounds interesting. How do we get in? And he's like, you got to buy a table, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't have any money right now, I can't just drop 2K to enter a place by myself. And so I looked at the queue and I said, it was just predominantly female. I was like, why is it just girls coming? Like, there's no guys or something? And he's like, this is how the rules are, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, what if I worked for you and I brought people to your club and packed it out? And, literally from that day on, we had a little agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And within an hour, I brought 5-6 people. We got in. It was good, great night. I was like, wow, I could see myself doing this for longer. I didn't even feel like work. And so I did this for several years. And in the process, I made more money than I could have expected. A decent sum, like in line with a good doctor. And I wasn't even working. Like I was basically just partying. I was getting paid to party. And so
paid to get laid.
Cool. I used the same dedication and discipline in this game as I used in every other game before. So to be a doctor, I had this concentration and this idea and this plan, and I used the same daily dedication. I woke up early, I went to sleep on time, and everything was just like super strategic. And if you looked at everybody else who was doing the same role as me, because essentially this is not a normal job, there's no salary. You just get paid commission. It's basically just a commission-only sales role. And so you have to really back yourself to know that, okay, we're going to make money from nothing, basically. We don't have any there was no I didn't know that I was going to make enough money, but I knew I would make a lot of money. So it wasn't even like, am I going to make enough to da-da-da? That wasn't even a thought that occurred to me. This idea that could I fail didn't even occur to me. And that's interesting because in the future, several years down the line, I was looking to build a team to work with me. And a lot of people that I asked to work, there was often this fear within them, like, I don't know, like, you only earn this much, like, to do this, and like, what if I don't bring this, and what if all of these what if questions, and it blew my mind that none of these questions came into my head, and it just worked. I just made it work. So
Yeah.
I don't even know what it would have been like if I think like that. Do you understand what I mean? And so now it's so easy for me on my current new business to go and hire people because I can just instantly tell, do they have it? Do they have this? Now, when I look to hire now, I look for people that had what I had back then. It's this just innate ability to know that whatever comes this way, we're going to make it work. And so there's a lot of transferable skills that you can learn from any business, in my opinion. And so a lot of people who go into a corporate role, I feel like this is not a good way to learn the necessary skills, as you would know, having worked in corporate and now running your own business. I just don't think it translates well. You know, like if I had a kid, I would make sure that they don't go into one of these roles and be one of these parents that's like, no, you learn these business skills and then you can do whatever you want to do with that because it's way more likely to be transferable. And so,
I mean, commission-based sales, basically, if you're bad at it, you get zero. And if you're good at it, you make really good money, right? From what I understand. So as that kind of role prepared you potentially for the next one, it probably gave you good confidence to setting up a business in itself, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have had the, I guess, experience from leading a team in the kind of club days to being able to do that in a proper role where you're, you know, potentially managing operational stuff, sales stuff, marketing stuff, all the things that basically come into a strategic business venture. So this kind of angle that you've taken sounds like, yeah, it sounds like it's working really well for you. I know from personal experience, people in the corporate world definitely don't understand what it's like in these types of roles, and they're completely confused by it, just like doctors, just like accountants, etc. So it seems like, yeah, there's a lot more on the horizon too. So what would you say is the next big thing coming your way?
it's a good question. I definitely agree with you that there's a lot of transferable skills from doing this kind of commission only thing. And because you sort of build a tolerance and this confidence that you can just make enough with what you've learned and what you can do to then start something else, you know? And I think a lot of things that hold people back is when they start a new business, they need this confidence. They need to, a lot of people I know personally, they say, oh, I need to have experience or, you know, let me like do 3 years here in this job before then I can start this thing. And I always thought to myself, can you imagine how much time you save in life just by believing in yourself? And I know that's harder than it sounds. And that's why it's so critical that you do this early. Do it as young as possible, in my opinion, because then when you're younger, you don't care as much. You're like, whatever. Like, it doesn't work. Doesn't matter. I'm still young. I can do something else. But I feel like as you get older, this will just become more difficult because you've trained yourself that this is the only thing you can do. And then you will have or lack a confidence to then start something brand new from square one. And a lot of people are scared of this, you know, and I don't blame them. And that's why I'm so glad, although I had all of these years of education that, like, frankly, it's great to have an education. It was absolutely useless for me. It was so useless. I could have read business books and, you know, psychology books and all of this. And then from like the age of 14, 15, I would have been ready to leave school. And then I could be 9 years ahead of where I am now. Okay. But, you know, there's always a what if. That's why when I look at the younger generation now, if you know what you want to do at the age of 16, 17, you are so far ahead, especially when it's a business that you want to start. You are so far ahead of these older generations, literally only 10 years ago. You know what I mean? And so that's why now I've luckily trained myself to not feel like I'm behind and start something new whenever I feel like there's a new opportunity. I just go
Proactive as opposed to
I'm just
reactive.
proactive. I don't question the thing. You know, like when AI came in and whatever, I was thinking, wow, we could do this, could do this, could do this. And knowing in the back of my mind, it's going to be another 9 years before any of the masses are going to be like, oh, I wish I did this earlier. And, you know, every year people are always saying, I wish I did this earlier. You know, I think having the maturity and the wisdom to know that actually the first few years of anything, really, you're never really late. You know, like you think you're late if you're 1 year later, but you're not. You know, like in the grand scheme of things, you're like 3% of the people who are actually making use of this thing. You know, just like with Facebook ads, you know, people have been doing this 2015, whatever. And now, and they've been killing it since. And then there's people still doing it now, getting into it, and then killing it 6 months later.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
Bringing up an
10 years later, it's
point.
not too late. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so going back to sales skills, I don't actually know where I learned this, but it's just, I guess, having the balls to not care what the opposing person is saying if they're rejecting you. And so you don't take it personally. You know it's not really you. If anything, they're helping you. They're giving you data that you could use to then improve for the next client or close. And so I look forward to it. You train your brain differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so eventually, over all these years, you're training yourself to think differently in all of these different assets and whatever. When you put that all together, it's inevitable that you will just make it happen in whatever you look to do. Do you know what I mean?
From what I understand that you do really well is that the rejection almost gives you the data point on what not to do every other time in the future. And you've got that info now. So it's like, okay, they said this, they did it in this way. Now you know the reaction is probably not this. And then after 9 more reactions like that, you figure out the reaction that is going to get the outcome that gets them basically a yes as opposed to a no. And then doing this over 1,000 times is like an iterational process until you eventually crack, 99% of people that are going to give you an objection and find a way through from the sound of it.
Exactly. And I'm always seeing people with potential, and I see what I had back in when I was their age. And I was thinking when I was their age, I make myself sound so old, but when I speak to these people, I'm like, listen, you have this thing, okay? Not many people have it. I can spot it because I had the same thing. You should use it now because this will compound 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the line in ways that you couldn't even imagine if you just did this thing. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is if the quicker you can uncouple your
from rejection, nearly,
the further you will go. And this is with everything. This is not just with business. This is with literally everything. I mean, like most guys are scared to go and find the right partner that suits them because they're worried about rejection and this and that. Most people are scared to get the right job because they're worried about rejection, this and that. They're worried to literally go and relocate to another city, town, country, whatever, because they're worried about this and that. Da, 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 da. If you just uncouple all of this bullshit
and go do it
and just do the fucking thing, it's so mad how quickly you can change your life. I'm literally walking along the street and I'm like, this guy can change this guy can change this. I'm not even a fucking therapist. I'm just like, you can change all of these things by next week and have an 80% better life. And they just don't do it. So, I don't know I guess what I'm trying to say is it's there. People just they just fear. There's too many what ifs and what ifs. And that's why I think it's so hard to get out of this rut until you force yourself enough times and with enough repetitions that your brain neurologically wires itself to say, okay, you know what, this is easy. It's actually, and then it becomes just a state of workflow. It just becomes a flow state.
You get in flow a lot easier because you're starting to win and build up those wins.
Exactly. And so after COVID, this is where it gets really interesting. And it's a story that I think back to and I'm like, wow, I will tell this for the rest of my life because there's so many people that can learn from this major lesson. And I've saved up all this money from the previous business. COVID comes, suddenly I've got no business. There's literally nothing, but I have all this money. And so I don't have this anxiety like, oh, I don't know what to do with it, that I don't have enough money. It's like, I have the money, but I don't know what I'm going to do next. And because I was like just passing that generation of social media, like, just before all of this thing kicked off, I'd say like in 2015 or 14, I was in a very physical business, but it had the fundamental sales skills and the psychology of persuasion and whatever. That's still useful in any business that you're in, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that I had that, and I knew that I had the drive, and I knew that I was resourceful. So I was like, okay, I barely even knew how to use PowerPoint in fucking 2020. Like Excel, I've never used this shit. Like I just don't need it. Do you know what I mean? And so instead of looking for a job, whereas all of my peers at the time were like, dude, you should just go get a job in the meantime to make things work.
Which you tried out, right?
This is the funny bit. Some of my peers were like working, stacking shelves during COVID just to like get by until they find another job. And I was thinking, like, the time I spend doing that is not even worth the time. It's like this is another thing I had from a younger age. I knew that the time is worth so much more if you use it to learn things with a much higher leverage.
So yeah, I mean, figuring out the leverage.
Exactly. And this came from a young age. Like my parents used to tell me when I was 14, 15, because we were kind of broke. They were telling me, go and get a job. Earn your £7 an hour in fucking JD Sports. And I was like, are you mad? I would just read books. You know what I mean? I just read books and read books. And so I was wiring myself to know that actually, if you just read this book, you could probably find your answer. Whereas a lot of people right now wouldn't even, like, they get to page 53 and they're like, oh, fuck this shit. Do you know what I mean? So I'm so glad that I had this workflow,
follow through
a
mentality.
habitual pattern
Yeah.
that has been wired in that you can just learn whatever. Just pick up the fucking book. I don't even read the book. I just listen to like an Audible now or whatever. But it's the same concept. It's like you have the attention span to go through from start to finish. And you don't even need to read the whole thing. But the point is, you know that there's any problem you have, you can just go and find the answer. Like it's literally that easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I actually faced the same issue with Facebook ads because in the beginning, I didn't know how to run an ad and make those things work. So what I did was I launched an ad set, get those first few ads going out, see how people react to them, see if any results come as a part of it. And as a technical minded person, things just made a lot of sense. So I saw the numbers coming in, I saw the clicks, the views coming in, the impressions, but everyone else focuses on things like views. And I couldn't care less about views. I just want to see the end result. So like, what's the cost per lead? What's the cost per meeting? And then how much money do we make from that? Well, everyone else is focused on the other metrics. And then everyone wonders why, the Facebook ads don't work out for people. So for me personally, I just went through ad after ad after ad, looking at those numbers, making sure those numbers were going up over time. And as a result, yeah, we're like 9th iteration in, and the ROI is just hitting new levels that I wouldn't have thought were possible before. And we're doing this for, our clients now. So yeah, that's one thing I learned is the iteration, we're on iteration 9, probably gone through like 100 hours of content. So yeah, it's, I agree with you, the iteration side of things, figuring out how it all pans out in the end and just following through. From the sound of it, you have a strong follow through mentality. So, most people, they'll try a new venture and just like half-ass it, page 53, throw the book out the window. But no, you got to stay the course, right? You got to keep going. Even if you finish that first book and it doesn't actually get you anywhere, maybe the next one does.
Exactly. When I speak to people now and I say, look, how many attempts have you made at this thing? They'll say, oh, I've done 3. I'm like, 3? I would do 200 and I still feel like I'm behind.
It's not, yeah.
And this is with everything. Like, and the people are like, oh, you're lucky because you got practice and what luck? Every single, like, give me something that people can learn or like achieve.
Cool.
Okay. Give me another example. Like whatever. I will just assume that there's even just to find where I live. Yeah.
Yeah.
People will go do the first 2-3 viewings and whatever. But I will literally go and view 50 things and then say, okay, that one. Because then how would I know what is a good deal and a good thing if I'm not comparing it to literally everything?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some people would say, okay, that's a bit excessive and whatever. But you know what? I don't care. Like I think that's a superpower that you can go and not get tired and just keep doing the thing.
I think it's a compliment.
There's no off switch. You just keep doing it until you find the best thing. And then obviously you get more insight by doing more repetitions, obviously. And therefore that's where the confidence comes, Whereas a lot of people can just learn from someone like verbally, but they won't have the insight.
Yeah.
And so there may not be the same confidence.
They won't feel the winning mentality.
Exactly. And without that confidence, they may haphazardly choose between A, B, and C, and then second guess themselves at every step. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the person that's done it so many times is always going to be like, it's A, it's C, it's B, da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's how it, anyway. So coming back to COVID, I spent like, if you remember, I spent like 9 months, like no job, no nothing, whatever, just learning. I was like fucking on YouTube and
figuring things out,
and
coming around.
Even you were laughing, right?
Coming round to my place.
Literally, and you were laughing, saying like, bro, this guy, just go get a job, right? Even you were saying that. And so do you remember what I used to say? I was like, listen, the day that I begin, I promise you that I will make this work. And not just that, I'll do it in such a way that you'll be like, what the fuck? Like, it will be mind blowing. I said that with a confidence. It wasn't even like, this guy's just chatting shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
And so what I was doing back then is just looking at every different possible avenue that I could take to start some new way of making money, because I knew that I'm not going to go and get a job. And so one of those avenues that like took my interest was recruitment. And I don't know why. And I think it's because I just like the idea of like picking people's brains and seeing what's a good match for this thing and that person and this job. And it's like there's a sales aspect to it, there's a people aspect to it, and it's the transferable skills that I already had. You know, I was dealing with loads of people on a daily basis in my previous business, and there's a lot of sales involved and whatever. You know, it's matching different people to different venues is essentially the same thing. You know,
I
but
see.
most people don't see that. And so recruitment just seemed like a good idea because I knew that also that skill would be useful in any business that I do. It's a transferable skill. I'll be recruiting for my own business, right? And so I was like, you know what? I spoke to maybe 50, 60 recruiters. Another thing that people would just think is excessive. Yeah. I just went and spoke to every recruiter I knew because I actually like had some friends who are recruiters and whatever. And I asked them all of their experiences. And some of them have been in the game for 1 year, some of them have been in the game for 10 years. But I spoke to the whole breadth from different industries to AI and sales and this and that. And this gave me so much insight to the point where I even spoke like a experienced veteran recruiter when I'm speaking to a recruiter for a job. And they're like, have you done recruitment before? I'm like, no. And they're like, you seem to know like this, da, 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 da. And so I would get job interviews given to me by recruiters telling me, you know what, why don't you do recruitment instead of this thing that you're looking to apply for? And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. So I looked more into it. I read loads of books on this. There's probably like 6 recruitment books that I read just to get to the interview stage. Whereas most people would just do the interview. I would read all of these books and then go into the interview and then work from that as a basis of knowledge. That's just because that for me, that was the norm. It's like to over-research something and have enough information to then like inform your next decision. That, like I said, that was the norm for me. That was trained into me. And so even if I didn't go ahead with recruitment, the fact is I still did that mini learning lesson, that mini degree of learning. You know, like I compacted 3 years of information into like 3 weeks. And that's doable. And when you say that to people who are doing
Most people, it makes no sense. Yeah.
and they will be like, but you need a degree. No, you don't need nothing. I'm literally proving it to you. I've never used my amazing degree that I'm grateful for that I would never use. You know, I would rather, I would rather take, like, anyway, the point is I will make it work. So there is no backup. So when people say, oh, but you need a degree for backup, that's the wrong mentality.
Yeah.
If you think you need a backup, it means you're not
You've
going to
already
do
nailed
what
it.
it takes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's really empowering knowing that there is no backup. It's actually so empowering. Whereas for a lot of people, it allows them to rest and relax.
True.
But you can't. If a lion is chasing you, you know, like there's no, oh, it's okay, I've got this tiger to defend me. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You gotta
make a weapon good enough to kill
no matter what. And when
yeah.
when your back is against the wall, it's quite shocking how many people actually succeed and get the thing. And so that's why I never, despite the money that I'm making in my current business, which is, you know, it's not like amazing, but it's really good. It's way more than any doctor, lawyer, banker, whatever. But the point is, this money, I'm not like throwing it around and saying, look at how much money I have. I'm literally living like a normal person. You know, I'm living on a modest amount, and then all the rest I don't even see just goes into a savings account. Yeah, I should be investing it, but like anyway, the point is, I am living as if I still haven't made it. And I probably will do that until I'm doing 10 mil in a year. I will still feel the same way. You need that mentality. Otherwise, you're just like, yeah, I just want to go and rest. That's never been a thing for me. I like maybe call it a sickness, but like I really thoroughly enjoy the process of constantly leveling up and learning and whatever. And I really believe that if you don't have this innate need to want to keep developing and getting better, you're not going to make it. Like you just won't. Because you're competing against someone like me and other people like me. You're just not going to make it. It's a competitive world out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you need to start from someone. And so all these people saying, oh, yeah, but this person is experienced. Bro, you're competing against yourself right now. You got to compete against yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? And then when you get to that level, you look back and be like, fuck, I'm so much ahead of these people. Do you know? But what they're doing is look at my level 10, my step 10 in life, and then comparing it to the step 1. The fuck you doing? You shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Everybody starts shit. Huh? Step 0. Everyone starts shit.
Yeah.
I mean, but I never ever second guessed and said, oh, I'm so shit. It wasn't like that. It was like, I achieved this 12 years ago, and I knew that I started shit, and then I got good with time, with enough repetitions. And I did that in so many different avenues, in academia, in sports, in this, in that, and da-da-da-da. And so I just knew that the next thing I do, no matter what, it's going to be the same thing.
Okay.
You know?
Let's wrap this up real quick. Do you want to give any like 3 top pointers in business that you'd recommend? I don't know, someone that's starting out from zero.
Very good question. I'm just going to tell you how I did it, which is I looked at loads of different ideas that I could do. And right now people have AI and all of this, so they don't even have to Google things. Like AI will just tell them, this is my skill set. This is what I'm good at. I mean, I haven't done this myself because I've already done the work to figure out what I'm good at, but I think it could be useful for someone who doesn't know where to start.
So figure out your strengths.
Only you know what you're good at. And if you don't know, go and ask 10 people that you know who are in your friendship circle. Ideally the ones that are more likely to like not just say what you want to hear. The type of people you'd be like, they're kind of mean, because those kind of mean people
Honest.
are more honest. And I was one of those people. And so it's like, that's what you want. You want someone to tell you, you're shit at this, but you're really good at that.
Okay.
You don't want the person that says, oh, you got a great voice. Don't go to that person. So with this, you want to make sure that with those skill sets that people have said you're quite good at, because you might not realize it, you might not think you're good, but you know that people come to you to ask you about that thing often. So think about that thing that people have asked you about. Even if you're just on step 3, you're still 2 steps ahead of step 1 people.
Where does the evidence point, right?
Exactly. Even if you're good at nothing and people say you're shit at everything, which by the way, you need to unfriend those people. They got to say something, you know? Like if you're step 3 at something, work on that at least.
Okay.
Just work on that. At least you have something to work off. Read books on the thing. Go do the thing. And I think the most empowering thing is knowing that you need to be serious about your goal, but flexible about how you get there.
Absolutely.
And I think what too many people do is they're serious about how they get there, and they think that, oh, they got to pick the right only way. And that holds them back because they're then starting worrying and thinking, am I picking the right route? That's
got to adapt at every time.
If you don't die and get injured, then there is nothing to fear. Do you know what I mean? Okay, great. You've lost a bit of money trying this thing. That's what you have to do. That's a default.
Yeah.
But people think, oh, I don't want to, shut the fuck up and do the thing and lose at it. So you know with confidence.
Not to lose.
And what you're good at and what you're not good at and what you learned from it.
Awesome.
The main game here is, what can I learn from this thing? And if you really want to go even more advanced, my third tip is how many of these experiments can you conduct in a small time frame?
Yeah.
That if you're like me and you're very competitive, you start thinking, okay, I've done 1 experiment a day. Let's do 2. And then let's do 3. For some reason, at 4, I feel like it gets too much. Even for me, it's like, it's a bit too much. Like your brain gets frazzled and like you start losing focus and whatever. And focus is a major problem here. Like that's not really a tip, but here's an extra tip for you guys. But if you want to if you want to achieve the thing, you have to be able to be focused. And I'm not saying this in a cheesy way. I'm saying genuinely, if there's any distraction, your mom, this phone, your girl, anything, you're going to be at a major disadvantage. There's a study that says like if for every 1 second distraction that you've had, or even just a couple of seconds, it can take like 10 to 15 minutes. Don't quote me on that, but just to get back to
the zone you were in beforehand.
And that's mad. When you think about it, how many distractions are you having a day? Most people are having a million distractions every fucking minute. So you need to literally isolate. Or at least with me, I find that I work best.
So time blocking things, basically.
I don't even time block. I just work in isolation. So like, I cancel all the noise. I have a great view from my apartment and I don't even use it. And the reason why is because I don't want to be looking at people moving and cars and whatever. And like for some people that might work. But for me, even that's a distraction.
Stare at the blank wall.
Literally, the more blank it is, the more likely I am to get bored of that and then focus on the thing, which is more interesting, which is what you want, by the way.
The outcome, though, is often more interesting. Sometimes the thing is not as interesting as the outcome, would you say?
I mean, this is another question. Most people don't have that insight to look at the outcome. And so the main thing we're trying to fix here is the beginning. Most people are not even doing the beginning. If you fix the beginning, you'll find that the middle and the end eventually come. It starts to make sense and the puzzle falls into place.
True.
And so focus is the major thing, the major limiting factor that I find with most people who haven't started something and done their own thing. And the other thing is a fear of what if they're going to fail. And so you need to overcome these 2 things. Focus, easy to overcome. Okay, just delete fucking Instagram and whatever you're using.
Distraction.
And then the fear. In order to remove fear, you can't just wear a t-shirt that says, going to the gym, bro. Like, you need to actually do the thing.
Even at a small level.
Knowing that you're going to fail.
Yeah, sure. Some people are too scared to jump in, like,
you don't have to
2 feet deep, right?
Start small, but just know that there's a study as well where people allocate time to a certain task. They will take all of that time to finish it. So for the same task that takes a month, if you give yourself 2 days,
Parkinson's.
it's
Yeah.
highly likely that you're going to take this amount of time to do the same thing. So you need to start doing that. I don't know if that's what you want to call time blocking, but like,
Parkinson's.
yeah, I don't know. A lot of entrepreneurial people they tend to have this ADHD thing. Even like I'm not diagnosed, but I guarantee I have something like that. Okay, but this can be used in your favor. So there's no, I don't want to hear no excuses. Oh, I've got ADHD. I can't fuck your ADHD from D. Okay? Use it. Don't abuse it. You know what I mean? So like use that thing.
On that note, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed that.
That was actually my very first podcast, by the way. I've not done this before. Just saying. So you were very lucky.
Leo, was it?
Sorry. Mohammed? Yeah.
Okay, interesting. 30 minutes plus the 10.